Hi everyone, my name is Dave Betts and I'm here again with Andy Jones to talk to you more about pedals. Today we're going to look at tuners and volume pedals. So we'll start with volume pedals. Andy and I are both using Ernie Ball VP Juniors, and Andy's going to tell us a little bit more about the purpose and what we can use them for.
Okay, so volume pedals basically does the same thing as the volume knob on your guitar, but instead you control it with your foot, which is quite useful. When you're playing and your hands are caught up, you can change the volume with your feet. And one thing that I know I use my volume pedal a lot for, and other guitarists do, especially in a church setting, is for volume swells. And that is basically just bringing in a chord or a guitar line, slowly lifting the volume with your foot. So it kind of sounds like this. And yeah, that's useful for certain different settings, especially when you have lots of delay on.
So to pick up on Andy's point, it's really great for volume swells, particularly if you have a lot of delay. So I'm using 2 delays, which enables me to play the notes and they'll sustain even once I've brought the volume pedal off. So here's an example. So my volume pedal's off and the note's still ringing. Obviously you can still hear the acoustic sound of my guitar, but if you're on stage you wouldn't hear those individual picks. And then you can do that with chords as well. So there's a lot of sustain there, and it gives that kind of ambient, stringy type sound. And what we tend to use with the volume pedal is we tend to split the signal. So half the signal goes to a tuner and half the signal will go to the rest of the pedals or to the amp from there. So Andy, what tuner are you using?
Korg Pitch Black.
And I'm using a Boss TU3. So we have 2 different tuners. They do essentially the same thing. That's all down to personal preference. There's really not much to talk about tuners other than the fact that obviously you can tune your guitar. Now the great thing about a volume pedal with the split signal means that you can turn the volume off and you can still tune your guitar. So that's great when you're playing. If you pull your volume pedal up and then you can tune your guitar but it doesn't make any sound, and then you can just carry on playing. So for example, in the bridge of a song where the guitars are down, suddenly I can tune my guitar and I'm back and I'm ready to go just in time for the next section, which is brilliant. Now just to say, the placement of your volume pedal, it tends to change, and that's down to personal preference as well. So for me, I like to have my volume pedal first in the chain, and part of the reason for that is because I'm right-footed and I like to use my right foot nice and easily to play with all these sounds. But Andy, you put your volume pedal in a slightly different place, don't you?
Yeah. So I put my volume pedal after my overdrives, and that basically means it's also because I'm left-footed, which helps with the placement, but also it means I can keep a higher gain overdrive setting while still having a low volume, because if the volume was before the overdrives, then it would kind of act as if you're taking the volume off your guitar, which cleans it up a bit. But this just means I can have the same amount of drive but at a lower volume.
So as we'll talk about throughout the next tutorials, there isn't a right or a wrong answer with a lot of this. It's down to personal preference. So for example, the immediate pros of Andy doing it his way means that he doesn't get that buzz from the overdrives when he pulls the volume off. The downside is that I can clean up my tone just by pulling it off my volume a little bit, whereas Andy doesn't have that luxury in quite the same way. He has to do it with his volume here. So pros and cons, it's all a case of personal preference, and we really encourage you to figure out what works for you, what works for your setting, what works for the style that you're playing. But we really hope that you found this tutorial useful, and we look forward to seeing you again. If you found this tutorial useful, click the like button or subscribe, or of course get in touch via Twitter or Facebook. As always, we would love to hear from you.